we're back again. Same day, no difference.
I was playing the game and recording footage.
Wait, so you mean you didn't play the game and record footage before all that?
Yeah, I was playing the game and I was like, God damn it, we didn't give Bioshock the respect it deserves.
The respect that it deserves.
There's a lot to say about Bioshock 1. And before we get into Bioshock Infinite and Bioshock 2, I wanted to talk about the game design.
We have to cover every aspect to make sure, on Bioshock, to make sure we prove a point that it is good, because the other two, not so good.
Yeah.
If we don't do a good job here, the argument next is going to be irrelevant.
Yeah, and you are upset with me saying that I like Bioshock 2 more than Infinite, and I will say that Infinite's a great game and all, but I am less miserable playing Bioshock 2 than I am playing Bioshock Infinite.
I'll say that I could play Bioshock Infinite if I bothered to take the time to reinstall it on my computer, but I would not bother to install Bioshock 2 because I do know what I experienced and I am remembering it. That is not so good.
I can't really think of any other shooting game that does what Bioshock does. Whenever I explain Bioshock 1 and what you do in Bioshock 1, it almost feels like I'm explaining an RPG game. The first level is a great example of this, right? So you have the medical pavilion. Dr. Steinman's medical pavilion. In the pavilion, it's an open map, and it's a door that's locked. You try to open it, and it stays locked.
Right.
Then you find a button that opens the door to the actual medical pavilion itself. Basically, all that took place just in the entrance. Little by little, you uncover and unlock more and more of the medical pavilion. Once you get the fire, you can melt the ice, and then you can get telekinesis.
Throw objects at foes. You can even catch grenades and throw them back.
Right.
And then once you get telekinesis, you're able to go through even more areas because you can like
throw bombs at things. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
There's blocking the pathways.
That's blocking the pathway. But there's also a room where there's a key on the wall, and you can grab the key with your telekinesis and then unlock more things in the medical pavilion.
I didn't know there was a key.
It's in the same area as that damn doctor. I don't know if you remember that.
The best things in life are free.
You can progress as you explore.
Yes, and that's something that is it's like halfway there on Bioshock Infinite, but I feel like it's something that's kind of missing, which we'll get to Bioshock Infinite. Because
I thought you were just looking at the table down there.
Yeah, no, I made a list here. Experimental convenience.
Trick the security system. Set security bots and turrets on your enemies.
Obviously, Bioshock is kind of an environmental heavy game. A large part of the game is your surroundings, what you use in the room that you're in, the traps you lay out, hacking the security systems plays a big part. It's like every time I play Bioshock, I hack everything.
Exactly.
I hack every single thing, even if it's some camera in the middle of dingy nowhere, I hack it.
Because the benefits, if something comes up behind you, is like, it's badass. You don't have to worry about it. You hear a little go off, you're just like, ah, they got that.
It helps so much to hack everything in the game. You don't really learn that until you play on like hard or survival difficulty, really. On medium difficulty, you can choose to not use any of your environments or any of your plasmids if you want to, but you may have trouble. On hard and survivor difficulty, if you try to not use your environment or your plasmids, you're gonna have a lot of trouble. Medium difficulty is okay if you're a bit newer to shooters. You don't want to try to hack everything. You don't want to use the surrounding stuff. You can choose to do medium, but you may struggle because you'll run out of bullets on Bioshock 1. Bioshock 1, you can easily run out of bullets and then you're forced to use plasmids.
Right, because it's not supposed to be just a run and shooter. You know, it's not really supposed to be that. Even though it does have a lot of weapons and stuff like that, you're supposed to be always a fear of not having an option to do something.
It's a strategy game. Bioshock 1 is technically, it's a horror strategy game. You run into situations, you can take a step back and you can assess the situation. you'll
figure out how you're gonna deal with the room that you're.
feel the most optimal way to deal with the room, to deal with bad guys you run into, to save them the most amount of health, to save the most amount of ammo. All of these aspects make Bioshock a very strong game. It makes it a very unique game to your average first-person shooter. Because usually when I think of a linear first-person shooter, or any shooter really, you go between different areas that are obviously set up for waves of enemies, to fight enemies. And you fight them, and then you move on to the next area, and you fight them, and it's very linear in that way. As I said before, Bioshock 1 is an environmental...
Sorry, no.
As I said before, Bioshock 1 is an environmental shooter.
No, we can't stop. We're gonna get started here.
Bioshock 1 is very, very convenient. It's not overly difficult to the point where you don't want to try anything around you, or you don't want to try any plasmids.
You usually have like 3 or 4 options to like. You know, like if you run out of bullets, you're not completely screwed.
Right. You
or
have
if you run out of
plasmids to
money,
use.
you know.
Yeah. But you have a certain amount of health. You can gauge what you can get away with, what you can experiment with.
From your previous fights.
From your previous fights, and from just how much resources you have, how much ammo you have, how much health you have, how much mana you have. All that is taken into account with the game design. But yeah, I take it for granted, really, because whenever you use your environment, it helps every time. It never hurts me. It feels more effective to use the environments than to without not use the environment.
Yeah, it's way more effective if you use water to zap enemies or whatnot. It's almost like a one-shot kill. It's way better than shooting your gun a whole bunch, or shooting them directly and hitting them with something. It's like,
yes, it's extremely effective. And that's how, you know, if you add a feature in your game, you want it to be effective and you want everything to be used. And Bioshock 1 utilizes everything like that. Yeah, it's lenient with the plasmids, and it's lenient with what you can do. And it's, like I said before, it's something that we take for granted because there's so many games out there that have features and skills that you never use, that you never utilize because it's more of a hassle.
Yeah, it is. A lot of games are like that for me. I'll find one way that's the best, most effective way, and you just repeat that until the game's over. So, should we name all the things that we can?
Well, there's a lot of shit we can do. We made a list! Zap water to kill groups of enemies.
Incinerate, then have them run to water and zap them.
Use telekinesis to throw an item back at your enemy.
Hack turrets to fight for you.
Zap them, then whack them. The 1-2 punch.
Zap them, then whack them. 1-2 punch.
Enrage an enemy to fight for you.
Use telekinesis on a dead corpse and then use his corpse to clear out a room full of traps.
It's pretty fucking elaborate. Hypnotize a big daddy to fight for you.
Incinerate someone and then shoot a fucking heat-seeking missile.
Grab a pile of bees and throw them at someone to fight for you. Yeah, Jason, I really worked really hard on my list.
That's a great. Can we get a zoom in on that?
Stayed up all night.
A variety of areas and characters. In Bioshock 1, you have such a wide variety of environments around you. You've got the medical hospital. Arcadia, which is basically a giant forest.
Yeah, the Fisherman's Wharf, that one.
Wharf, which is basically a giant sewer. It's really shitty there. I hate it. And then you got Fort Frolic, where Sandra Cohen is, which is like a really nice, pretty mall. Hephaestus, which is like a volcano area. And then you've got the orphanage and the motels.
Which there are not very many kids there if you play like me.
Just very interesting, wide array of places to go through and experience. And you meet these great characters. Dr. Steinman, who's very interesting.
It's one of the most badass bosses.
What can I do with this one, Aphrodite? She won't stay still! I want to make them beautiful, but they always turn out wrong! That one's too fat! This one's too tall! This one's too symmetrical! And now, what's this guy? An intruder! He's ugly! 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 Ugly!
Yeah, he's the first guy you run into, and the game doesn't explicitly tell you about him. It's really stuff you have to learn yourself.
From the audio logs, which are really doing yourself a disservice if you don't get Dr. Steinman's audio logs.
Yeah.
Symmetry, dear Steinman. It's time we did something about symmetry.
He gets so infatuated with symmetry
That it becomes not symmetrical anymore
it becomes
at
like
the end.
mono. It becomes just like one.
Why do we have two eyes? Is there some law that says we must have two arms, two legs, two ears, two breasts?
So he gets to the point where he's like, why do we have two eyes?
Yeah.
It's like he couldn't get the symmetrical formula right, so he just like decided, fuck it.
Creepy.
We're gonna just start cutting off legs and arms.
Yeah, the audio log that I remember from the game was like one of the best ones, which like actually made me laugh. Oh, the lady's like, oh, Dr. Steinman, you know, her nose looks great. And he's like, but her cheeks are so saggy.
I didn't realize how much her face sags. Scalpel?
Excuse me?
Scalpel.
Doctor, she's not booked for a facelift.
Let's just come in here and...
Doctor, stop cutting. Doctor, stop cutting. Get me the chief of surgery. Get me the chief of surgery now!
He wouldn't have been, because this is what I was thinking about, he wouldn't have been allowed to go as crazy as he was if he didn't have this sanctuary, this world to escape to. His world is just it's so cool on paper, but in reality, it allows for freaks like Dr. Steinman to run free, and that's where he really gets to face, like, you can't just let people do whatever they want.
Yeah, he gives everyone a certain amount of freedom, more freedom than they had on the surface.
It worked.
Oh God, you sick fuck, let me out of there!
Calm down now, little more.
Sander Cohen, I love Sander Cohen. He's so obsessed with art, and the mission he puts you through is to kill all of his enemies, which is hilarious. And then once you kill all of his enemies, you take pictures of all of his enemies, you put them all on a giant thing for him to witness.
Yeah, and there's Fitzpatrick.
Yep.
And he comes walking down the stairs like all magical and majestic. I love him.
Yeah.
It's my curse. It's my fucking curse.
But so Bioshock 2. Where to begin? Bioshock 2 gets a lot wrong. It redoes the story beats of Bioshock 1. It tries to add this new character, Sophia Lamb, and it's really funny. There's a picture in Bioshock 2 where it's like the top people of Rapture, and it has like all of the characters.
Which you would have seen in Bioshock.
Somewhere. Yeah. It's a picture of all of the people from Bioshock 1, and then like plastered in the middle is like Sophia Lamb.
You should pick someone from the original story if you're gonna keep going.
It feels fake if it doesn't feel like a real sequel.
Feels like you tossed it in.
Yeah.
Because that's what you did.
Yeah. Bioshock isn't a game that you can really make a sequel for.
Yeah, you can't reproduce it.
You can't reproduce it. It's lightning striking twice in one area is what they're trying to do. You don't make a sequel to a masterpiece. You can't make a sequel to Memento or Anomalisa or something. That's what that's like for me, making a sequel to Bioshock. It's such a masterpiece that you shouldn't touch it.
You're gonna have to tell me why.
No, you're right. Bioshock 2 is not good. It's not good. The only thing I remember from it was Ryan Amusements, which I love. I'm a big fan of Disney World and Universal Studios. And I love how Ryan Amusements made Ryan this Walt Disney type character. And he's like obviously brainwashing these kids.
Your parents brought you to Rapture, where you need never fear the parasites again. So you see, there is no place for you on the surface.
That's probably the only part that I remember, because it was the only part of the game that had something special or unique to it.
So now my question is it a good game, or is it a good game, or do you're in love with the idea of another place in Rapture?
It's because the design of the game. Bioshock 2's design is more akin to Bioshock 1. Infinite is another thing entirely.
But it should be a different thing. If you can't reproduce it, but that's what they tried for a third time.
They did do a good job with probably the best they could do with a sequel to Bioshock.
When we say they, we're meaning just the developers in general, but we know that Bioshock 2 is not made by the same people. So.
Yeah, Bioshock 2 wasn't made by the same company that made Bioshock 1.
So they didn't have the same vision, probably.
Yeah, it was like a cash grab from 2K, like here, just give it to 2K, whatever, and they're gonna work on Bioshock 2. It wasn't made by Irrational Games who made Bioshock 1, but they did work on Bioshock Infinite. You can almost immediately tell that it's not the same people. It's like a pre-rendered cutscene at the beginning of Bioshock 2, which is very strange. You see reused assets all over the place, like the fucking eel.
Cash grab.
I swear, the same Big Daddy they used on Bioshock 2 that they presented as a new Big Daddy was one that was thrown away on Bioshock 1. If you go to the museum on Bioshock Remastered, it looks exactly like a prototype Big Daddy that they didn't use.
When we were talking earlier, it felt like DLC, and honestly, it probably should have been DLC.
It should have been DLC.
And it shouldn't have had a multiplayer mode, because that doesn't make sense for a single player game.
It was tacked in, that multiplayer.
Out of touch people.
Yeah.
Out of touch, always.
So Bioshock Infinite, now I've got a giant list. Well, it's not a giant list.
Are you afraid of God?
No. But I'm afraid of you.
Bioshock Infinite. It looks like Bioshock, it plays like Bioshock, it has the spirit of Bioshock, but it's missing the design of Bioshock. Infinite is way more story-based and linear than Bioshock 1.
And they try too hard.
They focus way too much on the story and that roller coaster ride of a game, quite literally. Let me go back to Bioshock 1, right? In Bioshock 1, it's an open area where you would find 1 or 2 splicers every now and then, or like probably a maximum of 3. They don't really come out in groves of 10 or 20 in like waves. Bioshock Infinite is nothing but waves.
Who hasn't lost a limb working with them? Yet.
Here's the soldier I spoke of! The kind of man Comstock! Is there even a stone to mark that sacrifice? You will share my fate!
Stay away from me! Fireman Booker, careful!
Yeah. What did that teach you? Here you go, boys! A soldier's death awaits! What's that sound?
Look! Take cover! They must be done. Over there! It's Comstock's men. They're coming out to meet us. Look out! More of them!
Nothing's wrong.
Why are they dropping so slowly?
I don't know. Have to wait it out.
Go, go! Booker, he'll help us. We can use him against the Box fleet.
It takes away any of this. It takes away strategy and placement for your average first-person shooter wave formula, and it doesn't stray from that formula, and it gets very, very tiring over time. In one location, you fight waves of enemies. You move to the next location, you fight waves of enemies. You move to the next location, you fight waves of enemies, and it's like that over and over and over again, all the way till the very end of the game.
I will say this, and like, yes, that is tedious for me too. I don't really like a wave simulator where you're just like sitting here fighting through droves and droves of people. However, it does, in my mind, it does make sense because the place is so heavily populated. So, whereas Bioshock 1 was, you're pretty much showing up in the like toward the end of like on a apocalypse in their world, there's not that many people to fight there.
Yeah, a lot of the problems of Infinite you can blame on the story.
Yeah.
Like you just did.
Yeah.
And it's proof that it was a one-time thing. Like with Bioshock 1, they worked with the limitations, and with working with the limitations, they designed a better game.
Yep.
Better.
In this one, it's almost like a corporate guy was telling them, make it again and make it like a shooter, because that's what kids are into.
It's more streamlined. There's less strategy involved in the entire game, and I have multiple reasons why I say that statement. There's no real experimental convenience in Bioshock Infinite like there is in Bioshock 1. An example would be health packs. Bioshock Infinite doesn't have any health packs. It just has health that you find around on the ground, right? By adding this feature into the game, the developer is telling the player they want you to keep moving.
Right.
You can only hold 2 weapons. You need to keep moving to find more. You need to not take damage, and you need to kill all the enemies as quickly as possible, because you're going to take more damage if you don't.
Right. They're guiding how you play the game, and they're putting their heavy hand and forcing you to play it the way that they designed you to play it, and not making a playground for you to explore and experiment like Bioshock 1.
That's what made it so unique and great. And that's what Bioshock Infinite is missing at its core. The health packs and the weapons are a detriment to its design. It makes players speed through the game. In Bioshock 1, it was relaxing or interesting to be able to take a step back and assess the situation. But in Bioshock Infinite, you're getting swarmed like all the time. You get attacked by waves of people, and then the handyman comes, who is basically the equivalent of a Big Daddy.
Yep.
And you have no time to really strategize what you're trying to do, so you just end up just doing what's effective. You just do what's effective, and the most effective thing usually is to just stay in the back, stay somewhere back with a sniper rifle or a carbine or your pistol, and take everyone out. And the fact that you don't have health packs, you're not going to want to get hit at all. Right, so you're going to do the most effective thing ever.
Which is usually the most boring and annoying thing to do, which is like sniping every single enemy from a distance, then walking through.
Yes.
And after you do that so many times, yeah, I'll agree, yeah, that's boring.
Yeah. Bioshock 1, you have health packs, and you're able to gauge what you can get away with and what you can experiment with, so it's a bit funner. And it's not to say that it's an easier game. I've beaten both Bioshock 1 and Infinite on 1999 mode. Well, Survivor mode and 1999 mode. And I'd say they're about probably the same difficulty, except on Bioshock Infinite, I just use weapons. I didn't have to use plasmids. Probably the only time on 1999 mode you have to use plasmids is the very, very, very end, where you fight waves of enemies over and over and over again.
Which is not fun.
It's what you've been doing the whole game. Bioshock Infinite is so loud too, and maybe it's because I'm an old man.
Yeah, that stuff bothers me too.
Bioshock 1 gets wild enough. It gets wild enough. It doesn't have to be more wild, but now they're sending you on a literal fucking roller coaster. They got sun rays blasted in your face.
You're like swinging around, motion sickness.
Shit blowing up.
Blowing your ears.
You can't strategize anything. They have the handyman jump out of nowhere. You just shoot. There's also like an overabundance ammo. Because I'm too busy looking around for shit. I'm looking around for health. I'm all constantly looking around rather than like fighting. So when you force the player to have to search while they're fighting like that, it becomes instinct. You do the first thing you do, which is sit in a corner, shoot at people. It's just twitch maneuvers.
Yep. That's not what Bioshock is.
It's not what the first one was. It promotes aggressive combat, while Bioshock 1 promotes strategic combat.
That's how I would call an asshole the dude who sits in the back and like picks off all the enemies, then goes and does that. And that's what I do.
It's the most effective way to play.
I do that, but I like having other ways of handling things. Like we could make a list of all the ways to handle things, and I'm sure there is a list that we could make about Bioshock Infinite as far as handling a situation, but you don't do them.
Right, all of those are very inconvenient.
True list.
They have the mechanic where she can open tears, and it's the most inconvenient thing. It should already be there. We should not have to open it up with the tear and then try to use it while all this shit is happening around us. So I was playing the game, and I just got finished wiping out all these people, these waves of enemies.
Good die.
I was looking around and I saw a tear that you could open for a water puddle. For a puddle of water. And I was like, by my God, for me to have to shoot through all these people and to stop and look at a water puddle, to have her summon it, and then have somebody else walk onto it so I can zap it. Not only do I need to do all that shit, but I need to have enough mana to even zap. It's very inconvenient, unlike Bioshock 1 where everything is convenient.
Bioshock it's already there. It's already baked in. You don't need somebody to bring something else from inside. It's all there.
It's a mechanic that makes no sense. It's there for inconvenience. Just have it there. Yeah. Why do we have to look at it and push F on it? And it's already a game that promotes aggressive combat.
I can let all that stuff slide in my mind, and I'm sure you're gonna bring it up here in a minute, but the story for me is where it flatlines.
Well, I don't have too much to say about the story because I didn't understand what the fuck happened.
Exactly, and that's where it kind of flatlines. It's like, why the hell do we have to have multiple parallel, like you can just have it be a parallel universe.
I feel like the parallel universes were written in there because they weren't creative enough to come up with something that didn't share the same story beats as Bioshock 1.
I bet you.
Is it someone new?
Is it someone new? Someone from the Sodom below?
So in Bioshock 1, you have money, you have Adam, and you have the power to the people machines, which the power to the people machines served as a free upgrade to your weapon whenever you found it. It was basically a thank you for searching and discovering the area. You would like the one area with Sandra Cohen where you see all the people in white and they're all like statues. You walk in there, you get to the end of the place and it's a power to the people machine. You turn around and it changes all this stuff around and all the people are gone. It's just interesting stuff like that, right? It gives you a reason to discover more of the city. Adam, you get Adam from destroying Big Daddies, and it's your choice whether or not you want to fight the Big Daddies or not. They just walk around, they mind their own fucking business. And then you have currency from just scavenging, right? Infinite only has currency for everything.
Catch!
That'll do.
It just has coins, so you have no choice but to just scavenge for stuff. And it takes away 2 layers of what made Bioshock 1 great. You have to spend currency on items, you have to spend it on weapon upgrades, you have to spend it on upgrading your plasmids. And because of that, nothing gets upgraded. Probably just some of your weapons, because goddamn it, it's too expensive to upgrade your plasmids. It's like $1,000. And at the end of the game, I just ended up not upgrading any plasmids because I barely used them in the first place. And I just used it all on my weapons.
Yeah, which goes right back to what you were saying. You just pick your 2 weapons that you like and play the rest of the game like that and screw everything else that's in the game.
That's all you have to do. And it's like that until just 1999 mode at the very, very end where you fight waves. That's the only time plasmids become important. On your last game, you had 3 different kinds of currencies that supported 3 different features of the game. And now you just have 1 where you just scavenge for money. And it's so scarce to even find the amount of money to experiment with stuff. And there we go back to inconvenience when it comes to experimenting. It's ridiculous. It's not fun at all.
It's not good.
It's not fun. One thing is the areas. 2, Bioshock 1 areas are so rememberable. And then you go to Bioshock Infinite and it's just like Soldier's Field. I don't remember any of these places.
I think I remember. And it was like, got the crow house, and the guy, you know, is on a picture and he's like, crows. And you got,
John Wilkes Booth.
Yeah, and then you got the church, remember that?
I just got finished playing the game and I don't remember that.
You got the airships that fly around.
You got more than one airship that looks exactly the same.
You got a place where they build robots, like
King's
Uncle
Place.
Sam.
Yeah, King's Place. But other than that, it's really just street after street.
But they got the circus. Remember that?
At the beginning of the game, which is the only good part of Infinite, arguably. And remember when you fight the waves of enemies and the airships come down, like every other first-person shooter ever?
Never fought any waves. I don't know what you're talking
You
about.
don't remember fighting airships like what they do in every single game ever, where the airships come down and more waves of enemies come?
I just remember using a lot of portals, and I remember in my playthrough, I grabbed, she's your daughter, Spoilers.
Your daughter that looks like a Toy Story character.
Oh yeah.
She's animated like a Toy Story. She looks like a Disney character.
Elizabeth!
Hello! Oh, this is wonderful! Oh, come dance with me, Mr. Twin.
I don't dance.
Why are we always going up an elevator and talking to each other in the elevator? How did you spend so much time in an Angel in the middle of the city and not know that you were special in any way, shape, or form? You didn't even know that Comstock was your father?
Yeah, you couldn't use your brain at all.
Sins of man.
You're Comstock's daughter.
No, I can't be. I can't.
Didn't she have like a bunch of books and stuff in there? Or no, she was hidden from books?
No, she has some books.
So then, yeah.
And I mean, she knows about the outside world, obviously, because she was like looking at.
So why didn't she just walk through?
Why didn't she fucking walk through the terrace?
It's not good, but I will say it's better than Bioshock 2, in my opinion. And
I mean, it's valid.
But overall, they should have made it. And I'll agree with you there.
They should have made it. You can't make Anomalisa twice.
You can't make Ghostbusters twice. You can't remaster it.
Well, they tried to make Ghostbusters twice, but they failed horribly.
Yeah, that's right. They made Ghostbusters too. But that wasn't so bad, right?
I think it was bad.